Thanks for joining us for the Executive Series. Today I'm talking to Mark Bayliss, who is the CEO of Graze E-Commerce. Welcome back, Mark.
Good afternoon. Good to see you again.
Let's talk about your results.
Yep.
Revenue up by 14%. What were some of the features of the last 6 months?
So it's been a good 6 months for us. Quite a lot of transformation in the business. We've effectively moved from a mix of retail businesses and auction businesses to a primarily auction-focused business, mainly centred around industrial or B2B. We've seen some good growth in our industrial business. Revenue's up 21%. We've also streamlined our remaining consumer business. We've seen a little bit of revenue drop there, but an increase in profit, which is good. And we're going to streamline that going forward, but pleasing result there. And our large retail online business, we actually sold to a group called MySale, and that actually completed just after the half year in January. So where we've got to is we've now got a much more focused business with a much lower fixed cost base. So we're actually very well poised for the future on that.
Okay, so let's talk about the sale of the fixed price retail business. Are you planning to exit the business to consumer side of things entirely?
No, I mean, there were two parts to our consumer business. There was the fixed price online retail business. And what we actually were finding in that business is online retail in general is very competitive. Customers seem to be loyal only to the lowest price. Yep. They want stuff delivered now, they want it delivered for free, and it tends to have a high fixed cost base in the business. So, looking forward longer term, we actually felt that we would actually be much better off focusing on our core business. And in our industrial business, we make EBITDA margins of 25%, 5% in our consumer auction business, as opposed to fighting, to make an EBITDA, with a very high fixed cost base. So very much a refocusing to really invest the time in a lower cost based business that's got far more growth opportunities going forward.
Okay, so with all of your attention now focused on the B2B side of things, what are going to be the main drivers of growth as far as that segment's concerned?
So when we put the strategy together about 12 months ago, there were four main drivers of growth, and we've actually seen very pleasing results in that. So our core revenue in our core business actually grew over 30% H1 on H1, and that's across a number of categories: auto, mining and construction, transport and civil. We saw a little bit of drop off in some of the lumpy. We tend to have some lumpy revenues, which is sort of insolvency based. It's difficult for us to predict that. That was a little bit quieter in the first half, but we're now seeing some good momentum coming into the second half of this year. I think going forward, we're going to probably see a stronger second half result in this year than we saw in the second half of last year. But going well in terms of the underlying business. We also bought a small business in the agricultural sector to actually help us get into ag. Ag's an important sector, for asset disposition in Australia. That's given us a beachhead there. But it's going well across all areas of growth, not just industrial, but in our core consumer auction business as well.
So to that end, with the acquisition in the ag sector, is acquisitions going to be a big part of your growth strategy?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. I mean, we're always on the lookout for acquisitions, but I mean, where we've got to now is we're building the core business very nicely. We're seeing good core growth there. The focus certainly for the next 6 to 12 months has been on focusing on that, growing the core organically, and I think we'll continue to do well. But if there are strategic bolt-on opportunities for us, in a particular region in Australia or New Zealand, or perhaps even in Southeast Asia, or a particular asset category, and the business that we're buying has the same cultural fit as us, that's actually really important, and we can drive the business and create shareholder value, and obviously we're going to consider that. So it's going to be quite situational, I think, but it's certainly on the cards.
So when we see the business sentiment surveys released, it can be quite fickle. It has been for some time. Are you seeing any relationship between that sort of thing and what you're seeing on the ground in your business?
Yeah, look, absolutely. The best type of economic environment for us, is in a sell down or in a buy in phase.
Yep.
If the economy was nice and stable at growing at 4% to 5% GDP every year, you don't tend to get as much activity. So when markets are expanding or contracting, is good for us. It also depends on the actual asset category as well. We've seen good growth in cars. but we've seen quite a lot of activity in mining, as you'd expect.
Yep.
The main activity that we're seeing there is really more around the mobile mining gear, as opposed to a lot of the fixed mining gear that actually is sort of bolted down at the mine head or underneath. So it kind of differs depending on the asset category that we're involved with. But yeah, I mean, what you're seeing in terms of business sentiment is very much playing through into what we're seeing in our numbers.
So in broader terms, what are you seeing in terms of the second half of the year?
So we've started the second half really well. We've got a nice pipeline of stuff, particularly in insolvency. And the guidance that we've given the market is the second half EBITDA performance this year will be above that. And I think we used the word comfortably ahead, I think was the term we used.
It can become an exercise in semantics, can't
Exactly. So comfortably ahead of H2 last year. We feel pretty confident about that. The business is gaining momentum. We have a very clear strategy. I think we'll have a good H2 this year, and that will build obviously into the new FY17 year going forward.
Mark, good to talk to you.
As always, thank you very much. Cheers.
And thanks for joining us for the Executive Series.